Hey guys, tonight we're stepping away from the thunderous pronouncements of Zeus and the epic quests of heroes, and instead, we're going to wander into the whispering groves and babbling brooks of ancient Greece. Imagine yourself drifting through a sun-dappled forest, the air thick with the scent of pine and damp earth, a gentle breeze rustling through the leaves above. You're not chasing monsters or confronting vengeful gods. No, tonight, you're observing the quiet, often overlooked inhabitants of this mythical landscape. We're talking about the nymphs, those ethereal, often shy beings who populated every nook and cranny of the natural world, performing their surprisingly mundane duties with serene dedication. You probably won't survive a direct encounter with a truly angry deity, but a day spent observing a nymph might just lull you into the deepest slumber. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Tell me, where are you listening from tonight, and what time is it there? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself in a world where every rustle in the leaves, every glint on the water, every echo in the mountains has a conscious, living presence behind it. Not a grand, booming presence, mind you, but a subtle, almost imperceptible one. These aren't the main characters of the myths you read in school. They're the background players, the quiet supporting cast who ensured the world kept turning with a gentle, often unseen touch. Think of them as the silent caretakers of the natural world, the ancient Greek equivalent of park rangers. If park rangers also happen to be immortal and occasionally turn people into trees. And no, they didn't wear khaki uniforms. Probably. The classical Greek understanding of nymphs often placed them as minor goddesses, spirits of nature, tied to a specific location or natural feature. They were not all-powerful like the Olympians, nor were they as tragic or grand as many of the mortal heroes. Instead, their existence was woven into the fabric of the environment itself. They embodied the life force of a tree, the purity of spring, the coolness of a mountain breeze. This intimate connection meant their lives were often as quiet and cyclical as the natural phenomena they represented. You might observe a dryad, for example, spending an entire immortal lifetime simply being a tree. Talk about low-maintenance living. No rent, no bills, just photosynthesis and the occasional pleasant breeze. Historians still argue whether the concept of nymphs evolved from earlier animistic beliefs or developed directly alongside the anthropomorphic gods. It's a fascinating chicken or egg scenario for the mythological set. Their roles were varied, though often focused on tending and protecting. You'd find them guarding groves, ensuring the waters flowed pure, nurturing wild animals, and generally maintaining the delicate balance of their particular domain. They weren't usually instigators of grand narratives, but rather, they were the quiet threads that held the tapestry of the world together. Occasionally, a god might take an interest, leading to a dramatic, for the nymph at least, episode, but for the most part, their existence was one of gentle, almost monotonous guardianship. Imagine being responsible for making sure the dew appears on the grass every morning. It's important, yes, but not exactly blockbuster material. You wouldn't see that on a top 10 most epic nymph battles video, because there weren't any. Probably. Their lifespans, while generally considered immortal, were often tied to the specific natural feature they inhabited. If a spring dried up, or a tree withered and died, so too might the nymph associated with it. This gave their immortality a strangely ephemeral quality, a quiet fragility often overlooked in the bombast of Olympian tales. It's a bit like having a job for life, but only if the building you work in never gets demolished. A rather unsettling thought for an eternal being, I imagine. But even this potential for quiet dissipation adds to their soothing, almost melancholic presence in the mythical landscape. As you wander deeper into this ancient, serene forest, your attention might be drawn to the dryads. These are the tree nymphs, perhaps the most iconic, yet paradoxically, the most unassuming of the nymph varieties. Imagine them, not as active, scampering figures, but as extensions of the very trees they inhabit. You see a grand oak, its ancient limbs stretching towards the sky, and you understand that within its gnarled bark and rustling leaves resides a dryad. Their lives are slow, tied to the rhythms of the seasons and the lifespan of their tree. For a dryad, a century might feel like a human year, a mere blink in their long, unhurried existence. Their primary duty is simple: to care for their tree, to ensure its health, to celebrate its growth. It sounds incredibly peaceful, doesn't it? No office politics, no traffic jams, just quiet communion with bark and chlorophyll. A mainstream historical fact here is that the Greeks held trees, particularly sacred groves, in immense reverence. To cut down a sacred tree was considered a grave offense, often punishable by death or severe divine retribution. This reverence was directly linked to the belief in dryads. You wouldn't just be felling a tree, you'd be harming or even killing a sentient, immortal being. It's a powerful ecological message, centuries before the term ecology was even conceived. Imagine if every time someone thought about clear-cutting a forest, they pictured a weeping, fading dryad. Perhaps we'd have a few more trees left. Now, for a quirky tidbit about these arboreal guardians, some dryads were believed to live only as long as their specific tree. This is a rather precarious form of immortality, isn't it? One unlucky lightning strike, one overzealous lumberjack, and poof, an eternal being is no more. It means their lives, while slow, were also imbued with a subtle, underlying vulnerability. You might imagine a dryad spending centuries tending to her beloved oak, only to witness the slow decay of a blight, feeling every weakening branch as if it were her own limb. It's a quiet tragedy played out across the eons, far from the dramatic cries of heroes. Their daily routines, if you could call them that, would be profoundly gentle. You wouldn't see a dryad rushing anywhere. Their movements would be as fluid and unhurried as the sway of branches in a gentle breeze. They might whisper to the roots, encouraging growth, or gently guide sunlight to young leaves. Perhaps they'd hum along with the buzzing of bees, or share silent moments with the woodland creatures who sought shelter in their branches. Historians still argue whether dryads were capable of fully detaching from their trees, or if they were merely conscious extensions. Their awareness spread throughout the wood and leaves. It's a subtle distinction, but an important one when you consider their quiet existence. Think of the patience required for such a life. To witness the slow unfolding of centuries, to see empires rise and fall while you remain rooted to the same spot, experiencing the world through the slow unfolding of bark and the gentle rustle of leaves. No social media, no news cycles, just the profound, unchanging presence of the forest. It makes you wonder what kind of wisdom such a being would accumulate. Perhaps they know the true meaning of slow living, a concept we modern humans are always trying to rediscover. They simply are, and in their quiet being, they offer a profound sense of stillness, a calming reminder of the enduring power of nature. When you imagine them, try to picture the oldest, most majestic tree you've ever seen, and then infuse it with a gentle, watchful consciousness. That's a dryad, and her existence is a quiet lullaby, sung by the wind through the leaves. Leaving the deep, rooted quiet of the dryads, you begin to ascend. The ground grows rockier, the trees thinner, and the air becomes crisper, carrying the scent of stone and high-altitude flora. Here, amidst the rugged peaks and echoing valleys, you encounter the oreads, the nymphs of the mountains. Unlike their tree-bound cousins, oreads possess a freedom of movement that is both invigorating and profoundly serene. Imagine them leaping from crag to crag, their forms as agile as mountain goats, yet their presence as ancient and unyielding as the mountains themselves. You won't see them engaging in dramatic rescues or leading armies. Their adventure is simply the quiet, continuous exploration of their vast, silent domains. They are the spirit of the untouched wild, the quiet majesty of a distant summit. A mainstream historical fact about mountains in ancient Greece is their profound significance in religious and mythological contexts. Mount Olympus, the home of the gods, is the most famous example, but countless other peaks were considered sacred. The very air of the mountains was seen as pure, closer to the divine. It makes perfect sense, then, that beings as fundamental as nymphs would inhabit these sacred heights. You might imagine an Oread, perched on a precipice, gazing out over a landscape that has changed little in millennia, feeling the same wind that once stirred the robes of Zeus. For a quirky tidbit, some Oreads were said to have invented echoes, not in a grand, scientific way, but as a playful, perhaps even lonely way to interact with their vast surroundings. Imagine a nymph calling out her name, just to hear it bounce back to her from a distant cliff face, a phantom conversation across the immensity of the mountain. It's a whimsical thought, suggesting a subtle, almost melancholic playfulness in their quiet lives. Perhaps they enjoyed the sound of their own voices, free from the incessant chatter of the gods below. Is anyone out there? Out there. Their daily routines would involve a slow, deliberate patrolling of their mountainous homes. They would guide lost streams, ensure the snow melt flowed smoothly, and perhaps even watch over the wild animals that roamed their slopes. You might see an Oread subtly shifting a loose rock to prevent a small avalanche, or whispering to a struggling sapling, helping it find purchase in a rocky crevice. Their existence is one of quiet guardianship, ensuring the mountain remains untamed yet balanced. Historians still argue whether Oreads were purely benevolent or if some harbored a more aloof, even wary, disposition towards mortals who encroached upon their pristine territories. It's easy to picture them observing human endeavors from a distance, perhaps with a mild sense of amusement at our bustling, fleeting lives. Their presence is deeply calming, a reminder of the enduring strength and solitude of the natural world. They move with an unhurried grace, their steps echoing the quiet stability of the mountains themselves. You won't hear loud proclamations or dramatic pronouncements from an Oread. Instead, you might feel a sudden chill on a warm day, or notice an unusual clarity in the mountain air, subtle signs of their unseen presence. They are the silent observers, the patient guardians of peaks that have stood for eons and will likely stand for eons more. Their existence offers a profound sense of scale, reminding you how small and temporary our worries truly are in the grand scheme of things. Descending from the lofty, silent peaks, you now find yourself amidst the gentle gurgle of fresh water. The air here is cool and humid, carrying the scent of moss and damp earth, and the rhythmic murmur of flowing water. This is the domain of the naiads, the nymphs of springs, rivers, lakes, and wells. Unlike the earthbound dryads or the free-roaming Oreads, the naiads are inextricably linked to the movement and life of water. You can almost feel their presence in the cool splash of a mountain spring or the steady current of a slow-moving river. Their lives are as constant and flowing as the waters they inhabit, providing a soothing, continuous backdrop to the landscape. A mainstream historical fact is that freshwater sources were absolutely vital in ancient Greece, not just for survival, but also for religious and cultural practices. Springs were often considered sacred, sites for prophecies, healing, and offerings. To drink from a spring or to bathe in a river was to connect directly with the naiad who resided there. This made naiads incredibly important to daily life, far more present in human consciousness than, say, a distant mountain Oread. Imagine relying entirely on a specific spring for your drinking water, and knowing that a benevolent, if unseen, spirit was its guardian. It adds a certain weight to every sip, doesn't it? For a quirky tidbit, some naiads were believed to have prophetic abilities, particularly those associated with specific springs or wells. This wasn't a grand, oracle-style prophecy, but more of a gentle whisper of the future, a subtle insight gleaned from the ever-flowing waters. Imagine dipping your hand into a spring and feeling a faint, almost imperceptible surge of knowledge, a premonition as subtle as a ripple. It suggests a wisdom born not from complex calculations, but from the simple, pure clarity of the water itself. Perhaps they knew what was coming because they could see the flow of time, just as they saw the flow of the river. Their daily routines would involve ensuring the purity and healthy flow of their waters. You might imagine a naiad gently guiding leaves away from a delicate spring, or encouraging fish to spawn in a particular eddy. They would meticulously observe the creatures that drank from their streams and the plants that thrived on their banks. Their existence is a constant, quiet act of nurturing, maintaining the lifeblood of a land. Historians still argue whether naiads were solely benevolent or if, on occasion, they might become possessive or vengeful if their waters were polluted or disrespected. It's not hard to picture a normally serene nymph getting rather cross about someone dumping their rubbish into a pristine stream. Their presence is one of perpetual motion and tranquil constancy. You might not see them, but you feel the coolness of their waters, hear the soft murmuring of their streams, and witness the verdant life that flourishes around them. They're the essence of refreshment and renewal, the quiet guardians of life-giving liquid. To sit by a tranquil stream, listening to its ceaseless flow, is to experience a small part of a naiad's eternal existence. Their quiet dedication to the flow of life offers a profound sense of peace, a reminder that even the smallest, most constant things have immense power. From the gentle, flowing world of the naiads, your journey now takes you to the vast, undulating expanse of the open sea. The air here is salty, filled with the cries of gulls and the rhythmic roar of waves crashing against distant shores. This is the realm of the Oceanids, the thousands of daughters of the primordial titans Oceanus and Tethys. Unlike their freshwater cousins, Oceanids are tied to the immense, boundless nature of the world's oceans. You won't find them guarding a single spring. Instead, their presence is spread across the entire watery globe, from tranquil coves to the deepest, most mysterious abysses. Their lives are as grand and expansive as the sea itself, filled with a quiet, powerful majesty. A mainstream historical fact about the ocean in ancient Greece is its dual nature, a source of incredible bounty and vital trade routes, but also a terrifying, unpredictable force. Sailors offered prayers and sacrifices to sea deities to ensure safe passage. The Oceanids, as daughters of Oceanus, who literally embodied the world-encircling ocean, represented the gentler, more benevolent aspects of the sea, often associated with nurturing and flow rather than destructive storms. You might imagine a weathered fisherman casting his net, feeling a subtle, reassuring presence beneath the waves, a silent blessing from an unseen Oceanid. For quirky tidbit, while many Oceanids were benevolent, some were associated with more obscure or even dangerous aspects of the sea, embodying the strange currents or particular localized phenomena. For instance, the nymph Styx became the personification of the river Styx in the underworld, a rather grim turn for an Oceanid. It's a reminder that even these seemingly placid beings had connections to the darker, more profound mysteries of the mythical cosmos. Perhaps one Oceanid was responsible for making sure all the lost socks in the ocean found their way to the same oddly organized underwater cave. Their daily routines would involve a cosmic scale of oversight. They would guide ocean currents, calm minor swells, and perhaps even subtly influence the migration patterns of vast schools of fish. Imagine an Oceanid gently nudging a colossal whale on its journey, or ensuring that the pearls grew perfectly within their shells. Their existence is one of constant, almost imperceptible maintenance of the colossal forces of the ocean. Historians still argue whether Oceanids, due to their sheer numbers and widespread presence, were truly distinct individuals or more akin to collective aspects of the ocean's consciousness, a vast network of watery awareness. It makes you wonder if every wave that breaks on the shore carries a tiny fragment of an Oceanid's thought. Their presence brings a profound sense of scale and timelessness. You feel the immense power of the sea, yet also a subtle, underlying harmony, a sense that vast, unseen forces are working to keep everything in balance. They are the silent guardians of the watery planet, their lives intertwined with the ebb and flow of tides, the gentle caress of currents, and the deep, hushed secrets of the ocean floor. To listen to the soft, rhythmic crash of waves is to tune into the ancient, soothing song of the Oceanids, a lullaby of the deep that has been sung since the dawn of time. From the boundless, rhythmic depths of the ocean, we now step onto mythical land, into a place of profound tranquility and abundant beauty, the garden. Specifically, we're visiting the mythical garden of the Hesperides, guarded by the Hesperides themselves. These are the nymphs of the evening and the golden light of sunset, but their most famous role is as the gentle caretakers of Hera's sacred grove, which bore golden apples. Imagine a garden bathed in perpetual twilight, where the air hums with the soft buzzing of unseen insects and the leaves shimmer with an ethereal glow. You are not witnessing a scene of high drama, but one of serene, timeless guardianship. A mainstream historical fact about gardens in ancient Greece is their significance beyond mere aesthetics. Gardens, particularly sacred groves, were often sites of worship, philosophical discourse, and quiet contemplation. They symbolized order, beauty, and humanity's attempt to cultivate a piece of nature. The Garden of the Hesperides, while mythical, reflects this deep cultural appreciation for organized natural beauty. You might picture a Greek philosopher strolling through a quiet olive grove, finding as much inspiration there as in any bustling agora. For a quirky tidbit, the golden apples themselves were said to grant immortality or youth, but the Hesperides' job wasn't to distribute them freely. Instead, it was simply to guard them, a rather passive, yet incredibly important responsibility. Imagine being in charge of the most valuable treasure in the world, and your main task is just to watch it. No exciting quests, no daring escapes, just quiet vigilance. It's the ultimate low-stress, high-value security gig, perhaps even more relaxing than a dragon napping on a pile of gold, since at least the dragon has to occasionally scratch an itch. Their daily routines would be filled with gentle, repetitive tasks, perhaps polishing the golden apples until they gleamed, watering the enchanted trees with ambrosial dew, or simply sitting in quiet contemplation amidst the fragrant blossoms. Their existence is a continuous, tranquil act of nurturing and safeguarding, ensuring the perfection of this divine sanctuary. Historians still argue whether the Hesperides were always 3 in number, or if their number varied in different tellings, reflecting a fluidity common in early mythological traditions. Regardless of their precise count, their collective presence evoked an atmosphere of gentle, watchful care. Their presence evokes a profound sense of peace and timeless beauty. You feel the soft, perpetual warmth of the twilight, hear the subtle rustle of golden leaves, and perhaps catch the faint, sweet scent of mythical blossoms. They are the essence of cultivated serenity, the quiet keepers of ultimate beauty and profound quiet. To imagine yourself in their garden is to slip into a dreamlike state, where the passage of time becomes irrelevant, and only the gentle glow of the golden apples matters. Their calm, unhurried lives are a soothing balm, a reminder that true treasures often thrive in undisturbed tranquility. Leaving the golden glow of the Hesperides garden, you now cast your gaze upwards, far beyond the earthly realms, to the shimmering expanse of the night sky. Here, amongst the constellations, dwell the Pleiades. These aren't just any stars. They're 7 sisters, daughters of Atlas and the Oceanid Pleione, transformed into a prominent star cluster. Imagine a quiet, celestial dance, a slow, gentle procession across the inky canvas of the cosmos. Their lives are one of ethereal beauty and profound, silent observation, far removed from the bustling world below. A mainstream historical fact is that the Pleiades star cluster also known as the Seven Sisters, has been recognized and used for navigation, calendrical purposes, and storytelling by countless cultures across the globe for millennia, including the ancient Greeks. Its appearance in the night sky marks specific seasons, crucial for agriculture and sea travel. You can imagine ancient sailors gazing up, not just at points of light, but the watchful, gentle eyes of these celestial nymphs, guiding their way across the dark waves. For a quirky tidbit, one of the Pleiades, Merope, is often described as the lost Pleiad or the faint Pleiad because she is less visible than her sisters. This is sometimes attributed to her shame for having taken a mortal husband, while her sisters consorted with gods. Imagine an eternal being, slightly dimming her light due to a gentle, everlasting blush. It's a sweet, subtly melancholic detail that adds a touch of relatable shyness to an otherwise grand cosmic existence. Perhaps she just preferred a quieter life, away from the celestial paparazzi. Their daily routines, if daily can even apply to a celestial body, would involve their slow, majestic movement across the heavens, observing the unfolding drama of the mortal world from an immense distance. They might gently twinkle in encouragement to lost travelers or cast a soft, guiding light over a quiet landscape. Their existence is a continuous, silent journey through the cosmos, a profound act of serene, timeless witness. Historians still argue whether the astronomical phenomena were named after the mythical figures or if the myths arose to explain the observed celestial patterns, a classic example of human storytelling seeking meaning in the stars. Their presence evokes a deep sense of calm and cosmic wonder. You feel the cool vastness of space and the enduring, gentle luminescence of distant stars. They're the essence of ethereal quiet, the soft, guiding light in the darkness, reminding us of the immense, silent beauty beyond our earthly concerns. To gaze at the Pleiades is to feel a connection to something infinitely older and more peaceful than ourselves, a subtle invitation to drift into a quiet, starry slumber. As the Pleiades softly drift across the heavens, you might notice a subtler, yet equally significant, celestial group, the Hyades. These are another cluster of sisters, daughters of Atlas and Aethra, associated with the constellation Taurus, and more importantly, with rain. Imagine them as gentle cloud weavers, their presence a soft, almost imperceptible promise of nourishment for the earth. Their lives are quiet, marked by the slow gathering of moisture and the gentle release of life-giving showers. You're not witnessing a dramatic storm, but the serene, necessary cycle of precipitation. A mainstream historical fact is that the rising and setting of the Hyades star cluster in the night sky were important agricultural indicators for the ancient Greeks, signaling the onset of the rainy season, crucial for planting and harvesting. Farmers would eagerly await their appearance, understanding that their presence meant the earth would soon drink. This makes the Hyades profoundly practical, despite their ethereal nature. You can almost feel the relief of an ancient farmer, looking up at the night sky, seeing the Hyades, and knowing that the long dry spell was about to end. For a quirky tidbit, the Hyades were said to have wept incessantly after the death of their brother, Hyas, who was killed by a lion or boar during a hunt. Their tears were believed to be the source of the rain. Imagine an eternal sorrow, so profound that it literally waters the earth. It gives their celestial duty a poignant, deeply human quality, a quiet, everlasting lament that benefits all living things. It's a bit like having a permanent sad face that coincidentally ensures a good harvest. Every cloud, as they say, has a silver lining, even if that lining is composed of eternal tears. Their daily routines, if we can call them that, would involve the slow accumulation and gentle release of moisture. They might subtly guide cloud formations, ensuring that the rain falls where it's most needed, or they might watch over the thirsty earth, waiting for the opportune moment to weep. Their existence is a continuous, quiet act of nourishing the world, a subtle influence on the very cycle of life. Historians still argue whether the Hyades' association with rain was purely mythical or if it stemmed from early observations of weather patterns coinciding with the cluster's visibility. It's a classic example of how myth and observation often intertwined in the ancient world. Their presence evokes a deep sense of gentle, vital necessity. You feel the coolness of an approaching shower, hear the soft patter of raindrops on leaves, and witness the renewed vibrancy of the earth after a gentle rain. They are the essence of quiet sustenance, the soft hand that waters the world, reminding us of the profound beauty in life's most fundamental processes. To contemplate the Hyades is to drift into a state of serene contemplation, a peaceful surrender to the natural rhythms of existence. Having drifted through the life-giving skies, your journey now takes a slightly darker, yet equally tranquil, turn. We descend from the upper air into the hushed, cavernous realms of the underworld, where you might encounter the Lampades. These are the torch-bearing nymphs of the underworld, companions to Hecate, the goddess of magic, witchcraft, and crossroads. Imagine them moving through dimly lit caverns and misty pathways, their torches casting long, flickering shadows, providing just enough light to guide, but never to illuminate fully. Their lives are one of quiet service in the profound silence of the chthonic depths, a gentle, guiding presence in a place often misunderstood. A mainstream historical fact is that the ancient Greeks had a complex and nuanced view of the afterlife, with various regions within the underworld, not all of them overtly punitive. While Hades was the ruler, there were also areas like the Elysian Field for the blessed and the Asphodel Meadows for the ordinary souls. The Lampades, therefore, weren't just about darkness. They were about navigating and illuminating paths within this vast, multifaceted realm. You might picture a newly arrived soul, feeling lost and bewildered, finding a quiet comfort in the distant, steady glow of a lampad's torch, a subtle beacon in the twilight. For a quirky tidbit, unlike many nymphs associated with vibrant life, the Lampade's role was to accompany Hecate, particularly during her nocturnal wanderings and in her more shadowy rituals. Their torches weren't just for light. They were often seen as symbols of mystic knowledge or as tools to dispel fear. Imagine a lampad, not just holding a torch, but somehow containing the very essence of quiet illumination, capable of revealing hidden truths to those who truly sought them. Perhaps they could even subtly alter the perception of reality, making the gloomy underworld seem just a little less daunting. Their daily routines would involve their serene, almost processional movement through the various landscapes of the underworld. They would light the pathways for Hecate, stand sentinel at significant crossroads, or perhaps tend to the dim, ethereal flora that might grow in the darker recesses. Their existence is a continuous, quiet act of bearing light and guiding passage through the realm of shadows. Historians still argue whether the Lampades were truly distinct nymphs or if they were more metaphorical representations of Hecate's illuminating power and guiding influence. It's a subtle distinction, but one that speaks to the nuanced way the Greeks personified abstract concepts. Their presence evokes a profound sense of hushed mystery and subtle guidance. You feel the cool, still air of deep caverns, hear the soft, almost imperceptible crackle of their torches, and witness the gentle dance of shadows around them. They are the essence of quiet illumination, the soft glow in the darkness, reminding us that even in the most profound shadows, there can be a gentle light to guide our way. To imagine the Lampades is to find a strange, comforting peace in the quiet depths, a gentle promise that even the unknown can be navigated with a steady, flickering glow. Emerging from the quiet depths of the underworld, you find yourself back in the gentle embrace of the living world, stepping into secluded groves and sheltered clearings. This is the peaceful habitat of the Alceids, the nymphs of groves and glens. Imagine them, not in grand forests, but in smaller, more intimate clusters of trees, often near streams or meadows. Their lives are one of quiet contemplation and gentle guardianship within these serene, hidden pockets of nature. You're not witnessing a grand, untamed wilderness, but a tranquil, cultivated beauty, a place of subtle harmony. A mainstream historical fact is that smaller groves and isolated clumps of trees held specific significance in ancient Greek rural life, often serving as natural shrines, meeting places, or simply peaceful havens for shepherds and travelers. These weren't necessarily as grand as sacred forests, but were deeply integrated into the daily landscape. The Alceids embodied the spirit of these more intimate, accessible natural spaces. You might picture a tired farmer resting under a cluster of trees, feeling a subtle sense of peace and protection, perhaps a silent blessing from an unseen Alceid. For a quirky tidbit, Alceids were sometimes associated with frightening away those who intruded upon their sacred groves, not with violence, but with a sudden, disorienting sense of being lost or an unsettling quietness. Imagine stumbling into a beautiful, untouched glade, only for the birdsong to cease abruptly and a strange, profound silence to descend, subtly encouraging you to leave. It's a very gentle, passive-aggressive form of territorial defense, far more effective than a no trespassing sign and much less disruptive than a fierce monster. Their daily routines would involve their quiet, almost invisible care for their specific grove. They might encourage the growth of soft mosses, ensure the undergrowth remains healthy, or gently guide the movements of the small woodland creatures who make their homes there. Their existence is a continuous, quiet act of fostering a secluded harmony, maintaining a delicate balance within their natural sanctuary. Historians still argue whether Alceids were distinct from Dryads, given their shared association with trees, or if they represented a more localized, less grand manifestation of arboreal spirit. It's a subtle mythological nuance, but one that highlights the rich specificity of Greek nymphology. Their presence evokes a profound sense of tranquil solitude and subtle enchantment. You feel the soft, dappled light filtering through the leaves, hear the gentle hum of unseen life, and breathe in the pure, earthy scent of a secluded haven. They are the essence of quiet beauty, the gentle guardians of hidden peace, reminding us of the profound solace found in nature's more intimate spaces. To contemplate the Alceids is to drift into a state of serene contemplation, a peaceful surrender to the quiet enchantment of a forgotten glade. Stepping out of the secluded groves, your senses might now be drawn to the sweeter, more cultivated scent of blossoms and ripening fruit. We're now entering the domain of the epimeliads, the nymphs specifically associated with apple trees and orchards, and sometimes even flocks of sheep. Imagine them moving gently amongst rows of fruit trees, their presence as nurturing and abundant as the harvest itself. Their lives are one of quiet cultivation and patient growth, a serene rhythm tied to the agricultural year. You're observing the subtle forces that ensure a bountiful yield, a quiet magic at work in the everyday. A mainstream historical fact is that orchards and fruit cultivation were incredibly important to the ancient Greek diet and economy. Apples, pears, figs, and olives were staples, and their successful growth was essential for survival and trade. The epimeliads, therefore, represent the benevolent spirits of agricultural prosperity, quiet deities of the harvest. You might picture a farmer diligently tending his apple trees, feeling a subtle, reassuring sense that unseen hands were also working to ensure a good crop. It's a quiet partnership between human effort and natural blessing. For a quirky tidbit, while primarily associated with apples, some epimeliads were also believed to be guardians of flocks of sheep. This dual role, linking fruit and pastoral life, suggests a broader connection to agricultural well-being and the gentle nurturing of both plant and animal life. Imagine a nymph, perhaps one moment coaxing a blush onto an apple, the next gently nudging a stray lamb back towards its mother. It paints a picture of a gentle, all-encompassing care for the sustenance of life. Perhaps they even had a subtle, calming influence on excitable sheep, ensuring their quiet slumber. Their daily routines would involve their serene, almost imperceptible oversight of the orchards. They might subtly encourage the apple blossoms to set fruit, ensure the trees are free from blight, or gently guide the sunlight to ripen the apples to perfection. Their existence is a continuous, quiet act of fostering abundance, maintaining the delicate balance of a thriving agricultural landscape. Historians still argue whether the epimeliads were originally distinct from other tree nymphs or if they specialized over time as agricultural practices became more refined, reflecting a gradual evolution in mythological roles. It's a fascinating thought, suggesting that even the most ancient myths adapted to human development. Their presence evokes a profound sense of peaceful productivity and gentle prosperity. You feel the warm sun on your skin, hear the soft hum of bees amongst the blossoms, and breathe in the sweet, earthy scent of ripe fruit. They are the essence of quiet abundance, the unseen hands that bless the harvest, reminding us of the deep connection between nature's generosity and human sustenance. To contemplate the epimeliads is to drift into a state of serene contentment, a peaceful appreciation for the quiet cycles of growth and nourishment. From the cultivated bounty of the orchards, we now turn our attention to one of the most ancient and enduring types of tree, the ash. Here, among the tall, straight trunks and rustling leaves of ash trees, reside the Melii, the nymphs of the ash tree. These nymphs hold a unique and profoundly ancient place in Greek mythology, as they were said to have sprung from the blood of Uranus when he was castrated by Cronus, making them among the very first beings to emerge onto the earth. Imagine them as quiet, watchful sentinels, embodying the very essence of primeval strength and resilience. Their lives are one of quiet, enduring presence, deeply rooted in the earliest chapters of the world's existence. A mainstream historical fact is that ash wood was highly prized in ancient Greece for its strength and flexibility, used extensively for making spears and other tools. This practical application imbued the ash tree, and by extension, the Melii, with a connection to warfare and craftsmanship, though the nymphs themselves are rarely depicted in aggressive roles. You might picture a warrior grasping his ashwood spear, unknowingly holding a piece of a Melii's essence, a silent connection to the ancient, enduring power of nature. For a quirky tidbit, because ash trees were used for spears, the Melii were sometimes associated with a race of men known as the Age of Bronze, who were said to have been born from ash trees. This gives them a fascinating, if subtle, connection to the very origins of humanity in some mythological traditions. Imagine a nymph, quietly observing the evolution of humankind, knowing that her ancient relatives literally gave birth to the warriors of a bygone age. It's a profound, almost parental role, carried out with an understated dignity. Their daily routines would be incredibly slow and rooted, much like the trees they inhabit, yet imbued with an ancient wisdom. They might oversee the growth of young ash saplings, ensuring their straightness and strength, or perhaps witness the slow decay of elder trees, understanding the cyclical nature of life and death. Their existence is a continuous, quiet act of bearing witness to millennia, maintaining a link to the very beginnings of the world. Historians still argue whether the Melii's primordial origin gave them a more austere or distant demeanor compared to other nymphs, or if their immense age simply made them profoundly calm and observant. It's a subtle point, but one that adds depth to their ancient presence. Their presence evokes a deep sense of ancient stillness and enduring strength. You feel the cool, solid presence of old-growth forests, hear the gentle rustle of leaves that have witnessed ages, and sense a quiet, profound wisdom emanating from the very earth. They are the essence of primeval endurance, the silent guardians of ancient origins, reminding us of the deep, slow currents of time that flow beneath the surface of our fleeting lives. To contemplate the Melii is to drift into a state of profound peace, a quiet surrender to the immensity of geological time. Having explored the ancient, enduring presence of the Melee, we now shift our focus to a group of nymphs whose influence, while subtle, is perhaps the most pervasive in human civilization: the Muses. These are not nymphs tied to a specific natural feature, but rather to the very wellsprings of inspiration and the arts. Imagine them as quiet companions, gently whispering ideas into the minds of poets, painters, musicians, and thinkers. Their lives are one of perpetual, serene inspiration, a constant, gentle flow of creativity into the mortal world. You're not witnessing dramatic divine intervention, but the soft touch that ignites human genius. A mainstream historical fact is that the Muses were revered by the ancient Greeks as the source of all artistic and intellectual endeavors. Invoking the Muses at the beginning of an epic poem or a philosophical discourse was a common practice, a recognition that true creativity came from a higher, albeit gentle, source. This makes them profoundly significant to the cultural and intellectual landscape of ancient Greece, far beyond the quiet glades of other nymphs. You might picture a bewildered sculptor staring at a block of marble, suddenly feeling a gentle nudge of an idea, a subtle gift from an unseen muse. For a quirky tidbit, while there are 9 classical muses, each presiding over a specific art or science, like Calliope for epic poetry or Euterpe for music, their influence wasn't about dictating every line or note. Instead, it was more about providing the spark, the initial, almost imperceptible current of an idea. Imagine a muse gently nudging a sleepy musician's fingers towards a particularly harmonious chord, or placing a perfectly formed poetic phrase right at the tip of a writer's tongue. It's a very hands-off, yet utterly fundamental form of guidance. They're less like strict teachers and more like quiet, encouraging friends. Their daily routines would involve their serene, almost ethereal presence amongst humanity's creative efforts. They would observe, listen, and subtly influence, ensuring that inspiration continued to flow into the world. They might hover gently over a painter's easel, or sit quietly beside a student pondering a complex mathematical problem. Their existence is a continuous, quiet act of fostering human potential, maintaining the delicate, fragile flame of creativity. Historians still argue whether the Muses were seen as independent divine beings or as emanations of the gods, particularly Apollo, who often led them. It's a subtle distinction, but one that speaks to the hierarchical nature of the Greek pantheon. Their presence evokes a profound sense of quiet inspiration and gentle enlightenment. You feel the subtle shift when a creative block lifts, hear the soft whisper of a new idea, and witness the beautiful creations that emerge from human ingenuity. They are the essence of quiet genius, the soft hand that guides the creative process, reminding us that even the most profound human achievements often begin with a gentle, almost imperceptible spark. To contemplate the Muses is to drift into a state of serene contemplation, a peaceful openness to the quiet currents of inspiration that flow through the world. Having visited the Muses and felt the gentle touch of inspiration, you begin to grasp the overarching theme of these lesser-known nymphs. They're surprisingly mundane, yet utterly vital beauties. You realize that while the Olympians were busy with grand dramas and divine interventions, the vast majority of the natural world, and indeed some aspects of human life, were quietly maintained by these understated beings. Their role wasn't to create thunderbolts or wage wars, but to ensure the fundamental processes of the world continued with serene consistency. You are seeing the quiet, diligent cogs in the mythical machinery of existence. A mainstream historical fact is that ancient Greek society, particularly in its rural aspects, relied heavily on understanding and respecting natural cycles: the flow of water, the growth of plants, the behavior of animals. The nymphs, by personifying these elements, provided a relatable framework for understanding and interacting with the environment. It wasn't abstract science. It was knowing that a naiad kept your spring pure or an epimeliad helped your apples grow. Imagine going about your daily chores, always with a subtle awareness of these quiet, unseen helpers. It adds a certain gentle reverence to every task. For a quirky tidbit, despite their gentle nature, many nymphs were believed to hold strong territorial instincts. If their waters were polluted, their trees cut down without respect, or their sacred groves defiled, their benevolent presence could shift to a subtle, yet persistent, malevolence. This wasn't about epic curses, but perhaps a well drying up, a harvest failing, or a quiet sense of unease settling over a place. Imagine a seemingly tranquil stream suddenly becoming strangely opaque, its usual clarity disturbed, a quiet protest from its resident naiad. It's the ancient Greek equivalent of a passive-aggressive note left on the fridge. Their daily duties, across all their varied forms, boiled down to guardianship and maintenance. They were the eternal groundskeepers, the celestial guides, the silent nurturers. From the dryads rooted to their ancient oaks, gently regulating growth, to the Oceanids guiding vast, slow currents across the globe, their work was continuous, patient, and largely uncelebrated in the grand narratives. Their existence is a continuous, quiet act of supporting the very fabric of reality, ensuring that the world continues to operate smoothly year after year, century after century. Historians still argue whether the proliferation of specific nymph types, e.g., specific tree nymphs versus generic forest nymphs, reflected increasing complexity in Greek thought or simply varied local traditions that later became unified. It's a fascinating glimpse into how myths evolve and specialize. Their presence evokes a profound sense of diligent serenity. You feel the steady pulse of the natural world, hear the subtle hum of life continuing, and witness the quiet, unwavering commitment to balance and harmony. They are the essence of quiet dedication, the unseen hands that ensure the world remains hospitable and beautiful, reminding us that true impact often comes from consistent, gentle effort rather than grand gestures. To contemplate the mundane adventures of these nymphs is to drift into a state of serene appreciation for the quiet, enduring forces that shape our world. As our journey through the quiet, consistent world of the lesser-known nymphs draws to a close, we consider their gentle departures, their subtle fading into the background, and the enduring, yet often unnoticed, influence they continue to wield. Unlike the dramatic demises of mortals or the violent clashes of gods, the nymphs often simply recede. Their immortality, tied so intimately to the natural features they embody, means their end is often a quiet echo, a slow dimming, rather than a sudden, explosive stop. You're observing the natural conclusion to a life lived in serene harmony with the earth itself. A mainstream historical fact is that the concept of deities or spirits being tied to specific geographical locations or natural phenomena is nearly universal across ancient cultures. When a culture shifts or a landscape changes dramatically, a river rerouted, a forest felled, the stories and beliefs associated with those places often fade. The nymphs, in a way, are the mythological embodiment of this cultural and environmental ebb and flow. You might reflect on an ancient spring, now paved over, and imagine the quiet, unlamented disappearance of its naiad, her purpose lost with her waters. For a quirky tidbit, some myths suggest that when a nymph's associated natural feature was destroyed or irrevocably altered, the nymph herself might not die, but instead become a wandering, sorrowful spirit, forever searching for a new place to rest. Imagine a dryad, whose ancient oak was felled, now silently drifting through the world, an eternal refugee seeking the comforting presence of a new tree. It adds a touch of quiet tragedy to their otherwise peaceful existence, a subtle reminder of the lasting impact of human actions on the natural world, even the mythical one. Their departure, then, isn't always an end, but a transformation. A stream might dry, and its naiad's essence could simply join the grander flow of the Oceanids, or perhaps manifest anew in a distant, nascent spring. A mountain might erode, and its Oread might simply become part of the very rock and dust she once guarded, her consciousness diffused into the land itself. Their existence is a continuous, quiet act of being present, and their fading is simply a return to the subtle, underlying forces of nature from which they sprang. Historians still argue whether the concept of nymph death or transformation primarily served as allegories for environmental change, or if they simply reflected a deeper understanding of the impermanence even within supposed immortality. It's a gentle philosophical puzzle, perfect for a sleepy mind. Their legacy is not found in grand temples or heroic sagas, but in the enduring beauty and functioning of the natural world itself. You feel their influence in the refreshing taste of pure spring water, the quiet strength of an ancient tree, the life-giving promise of rain, and the quiet spark of an idea. They are the essence of the persistent, background magic of the world, the gentle hum that keeps everything in balance. To contemplate their quiet journeys and subtle departures is to find a profound sense of peace in the cyclical nature of existence, a gentle reminder that even the most powerful presences can fade into a comforting whisper. As the final echoes of these quiet tales begin to soften, allow your mind to drift. The ancient groves, the shimmering waters, the starlit skies, and the hidden realms all begin to blur into a single, peaceful tableau. You are not just a listener. You are a quiet observer within this ancient, tranquil world, a world where the unseen forces gently guide, nurture, and simply are. Feel the lingering coolness of the mountain air, the subtle scent of blooming orchards, the gentle rhythm of ocean waves, and the soft, guiding light of distant stars. Let these quiet sensations wash over you, dissolving any lingering thoughts or worries. Your journey through the mundane, yet profoundly beautiful, lives of the nymphs has reached its tranquil end. There is nothing left to do now but to surrender to the stillness, to the gentle hum of the universe. Allow yourself to sink deeper, feeling the quiet embrace of historical slumber. Rest now, with the knowledge that even the quietest corners of history hold a soothing magic.